going, Jer? Good morning, everybody. I'm Walter Felge, Regional Parts and Service Manager. And with me today is Jerry O'Sullivan, my counterpart for the west side of the region. Good morning, Jerry.
Good morning, Walter. Good morning, everybody. Thanks for joining us.
As we promised, this webinar, which is number 8 in our series, I originally put it was number 7, Jer, but it's actually number 8 because we had that red cap. But this one's really designed to talk about revenue and the importance of revenue and getting the necessary profits up, obviously operate the business, and more importantly, look at processes and different concepts, if you will, of dealers that are having a lot of success out there and generating tremendous amounts of revenue and profits. So as I mentioned, this is our number 8. These are not necessarily do's and don'ts, but things that we're collecting from the different dealerships that are generating tremendous amounts of revenue by creating processes and applications that are showing to be successful. And we would be unfit, I think, if we didn't provide these tips and ideas for others to see and use what's actually working out there. Again, I mentioned before is we have the chat feature on Zoom. If you can see it on the bottom right-hand corner there, and feel free to ask. I've got it popped up on my screen so we can get those questions answered, or if you have any insights too, would be greatly appreciated as well. Call that sharing, right? Here's the agenda. Obviously, we're going to cover the state of the central region and give you some industry updates, including our sales is what's happening in the central region and amongst the Kia brand itself. And then we're going to get into navigating the new normal. Some things we're seeing with service lane technology, and we're going to call it revenue streaming, and it is a revenue stream, and we're going to show you some proof positives there. Some things with the technology that are helping dealerships reinvent themselves and improve their processes to generate not just revenue, but overall profitability. And then we're going to talk about what are the best of the best doing, service consultants who absolutely have nailed the processes and create added revenue on top of satisfying customers. We're going to go through some do's and don'ts, and those do's and don'ts are basically benchmarking of the dealers that are having a tremendous amount of success out there. Then we're going to talk about customer expectations before the appointment, the greeting and understanding. And again, throughout this is open dialogue. And then finally, the Q&A for open discussion. So let's start first with the weekly service trend report. This is our both customer pay and warranty trends since February. And you can see the chart plots out, and you can see when COVID had its most significant impact starting at the end of March, carrying through April, and then we started seeing the recovery. The nice part for us is that we see a trend both in customer pay and warranty starting to increase. One of the things that we saw is that basically recently we saw 11% increase in our warranty volume, obviously knowing that we've launched several service actions, and it's higher than the highest point prior to COVID. So we know that you're getting the business back both in customer pay and warranty. So what does it look like in the central region? So first of all, Kia industry-wide, on the left-hand side of the screen is where we're at from a national basis. And you can see that we are significantly outpacing the rest of the industry in our repair order volumes. And those repair order volumes are important because when I dissect it down to the 13 states, and Urban Science breaks it out through the 13 states, you'll see that Illinois and Ohio are actually #1 in leading the industry in both those states, with only one of our states below the industry, and that's in South Dakota. So we're seeing a rise, obviously, there of COVID cases, but you can see that we are outpacing many, many parts of the region. And I beg my pardon, Indiana is also positive on the 28 range too. So we're seeing that. Moving forward to KSI, and you're going to see that blue line is the 2020. And right now through August, we're tracking at 899.5 right now. We need to see those numbers increase, obviously, over last year, which we're 9 points, basically a little over 9 points year-over-year gain. And we're starting to see some improvements, but not at the same rate the national is. The national KSI is at 906, but it's all related to the service consultant touch points, right? That opportunity needs to increase, and we need to do a better job of getting the customer satisfied. And also the reason why we're going to talk about it as well, because generating revenue brings customer satisfaction along for the ride. And then focusing on resolving the capacity issues, obviously bringing staffing back and maintaining the pickup and delivery service. And also note that we did change the amenities question in July, and that's helping boost some of the scoring. So we do need to do a better job of satisfying customers, and there's a reason why. Moving on to sales, and I'm going to point this out here because the central region, we are up 8% year over year in our new vehicle sales. And that's important to note through June because we're the only region to do it. All the other regions, yes, they're gaining back, but we are much further ahead than other regions. And that's important to note because that's going to impact those new service customers that you have the opportunity to get into your store. And why do I say that? And I'll show you in 2 slides. Now moving on to our total competitive share. We are gaining competitive share on a daily basis. We thought we tapped out at 7.1 in April as a company, and we did it again in the month of June. We have 7.1%. Even though we're down just a nick in our sales, we're gaining share from other manufacturers that are struggling at that same point. So why is it important? Because we have a study and the drive sure, and you'll see that driving loyalty, right? Getting those customers to come back into your store. They found that 46% of the surveyed customers plan to buy their next vehicle from the dealership that's servicing their current vehicle. So not only are you generating revenue for the dealership, but you're generating new vehicle sales. In today's day and age, that's extremely important. Let me point out one thing too. When those services, when they prefer the services, the dealership would rather, customers would rather go to the dealership than someplace else. And I'm not going to say what that other place is, but they want to come to service for manufacturer recommended maintenances at 77%, electrical issues at 63%, oil changes at 63%. So that's 2 out of 3 customers want to come back to the dealership for service. So that's important. The one that bothers me the most is the transmission and repair, and we're only getting basically half of those customers. This is an opportunity where Sunbit jumps in, or any of the providers that give you the quick applications to use that financing service, right? But moving over to why do they go elsewhere? It's because of the bad experience. That's 53%. Half of your customers don't come back to you because of a bad experience. So what we know with the coronavirus and everything that's happening with the pandemic is that more customers are postponing work on their vehicle. They're not driving, right? And that's through a survey just in the month of July from Cox Automotive. So we have to do a better job of taking and getting those customers to come in and have service done. And if 2 out of 3 want to come back for an oil change, let's keep them coming back regularly. And then moving on to how the customers perceive or how they want to be communicated. 60% want to be text, 22% phone, 15% email, and mobile apps 2%, and mails 1%, general mail, right? Anyway, and then also we're seeing a decline in pickup and delivery when that was such a predominant thing for customers to receive. So let's move forward. So here's some recent service actions that we've seen that we've taken on our side of the house. Our Service Elite program is back. You've asked for it. We postponed it in the first part of the year. We brought it back. And we've enhanced it. We've got the district top performer competition, that's monthly. We have the regional top performer, that's quarterly. We have the year-over-year payment, that's quarterly. We have the sweepstakes, that's quarterly. And we separate the allocation into service consultants and techs in the allocation bucket for the total monies. Please take a time and go through this with all of the people that you have at your store and make sure they clearly understand what this opportunity presents and how much money they can earn through this program. Moving forward, we have the cabin air filter promotion that we ran. We have the right part from the start maintenance promotion that ends at the end of this month, this week. We have the Kia Cash accessory promotion. And for the first 12 days, we saw 11,600 accessories claimed. And that promotion ends at the end of September. We have the newly launched accessory sales guide that's posted on K-Dealer. We have our fall collision parts incentive program that runs through the end of October. And starting September 1, we have the buy 3, get 1 for $1. And in that upper right-hand corner, obviously, the Kia Tire Source, we have our Points Plus promotion for stocking tires, ends at the end of this month, the end of this week. So it's important to make sure you have that and you hit your number so you get that Points Plus promotion. And then you'll see that we're also sending out a point of sale kit to help enhance those tires that you can push through in the month of September as part of that promotion. Lastly, when it comes to our after-sales support, We've recently announced the Worth program, and that is something that has been long overdue, and we've acknowledged that. Many of you have been asking for it, and we just launched it. If you have any questions on it, it's on KDealer, or talk to your district parts and service manager for more details. And then lastly, when we see after-sales support, we're asking you to move over to the new website templates. Those new website templates are critical to maintaining the proper function and features that we see that customers are demanding from us now. And it's important to start using that if you can. If you have any questions on it, you can give your district manager a call. We've got the new templates. And without further ado, I'm going to pass this over to my counterpart, Jerry O'Sullivan, to talk about some things that are happening in the new normal.
Thanks, Walter. Good morning, everybody. Thanks again for joining us. We really appreciate your time. As some of you may have heard, these aren't necessarily the newest things, but we're hoping that they're a reminder of maybe some of the things you used to do and stopped doing for whatever reason. Maybe it's COVID, maybe you weren't fully staffed. But we're going to go through service lane technology and how it is that true revenue stream. What are the best of the best doing out there? It's not necessarily the best of the dealerships, but who's performing the best in certain indices and certain processes relating to the customer touch process that Walter talked about. How does it impact the average customer spend, and how do we improve customer satisfaction? We're going to go over some do's and don'ts, some revenue generation ideas, as well as some opportunities that prevent customers from returning. Customer expectations, some tips from dealers who created a way to improve that process efficiency. Generate the revenue stream by minimizing the obstacles for your customers and your team. We want to reduce those obstacles because we know that when we reduce them, we reduce the stress of the consultants. And when the consultants aren't as stressed, the customers are offered a better experience. And that ties hand in hand with improving the trust. If we gain the customer's trust, we can gain their loyalty. As we move to the next slide, I apologize for the delay. We're going to talk about the road to revenue. Currently, 90 dealers in the Central Region are using a tablet-based system. Through June, the dealers that are on SLT generated an additional $713,000 in net profit before taxes, when compared to those dealers that are not on SLT at $523,000. The dealers on SLT gained an additional 4 points in KSI, streamlining the process. Bringing the customer along through efficiently generates additional KSI. I want to point out, though, the green bar on the right side, because these are the dealers that not only have SLT, but are utilizing it for their MPI. And that's where the rubber hits the road. These dealers generated additional $834,000 in net profit before taxes, and their KSI was even higher. We know that when we integrate the customer through the process and efficiently move them through the stream, we know that the road to revenue is actually a much more efficient highway. Moving to the next slide, when we look at SLT, is it the panacea? Is it the cure-all? No, it's not. But when properly used with support of an active manager and great dealership processes, you're going to get gains in the KSI. We looked at and analyzed those dealers that are on SLT versus those that are not. SLT dealers generated 853 more repair orders per dealership per month on average, with a ticket increase of $9 per RO. When you combine the parts and service contribution to the overall dealership profitability increased by $74,000. Well, you say, well, I don't understand. How does SLT do that? Well, it streamlines the process. It makes your team members more efficient. So now capacity of write-up is improved. The other thing it does is it enables you to generate through the multi-point inspection a customer pay RO that may not have been there if the customer just came in for a warranty complaint or an internal no-charge oil change. Taking a step further, the SLT dealers utilizing the MPI process, greater than 50% per month, generate additional 1,267 ROs. That ticket average increased over $13, and the combined parts and service contribution to the dealer's profitability was over $187,000. That's proof in the numbers. SLT enables you to streamline the service department, and that's what our customers expect today. Moving on to the next slide, when we look at consultant interaction and the tablet use, this is data based on 2019 Kia's Long survey. When a customer said that the advisor knew their vehicle's history, their rate of satisfaction went up significantly compared to those that said, no, they didn't know my history. And that's what the MPI is. It's an archived piece of information. But if we don't fully utilize the MPI, if we only utilize it as a checklist, but we don't document what was sold, what was deferred, we miss out on the opportunity to record accurately the customer's history. So that at the end of the transaction, we can go over the green, we can preset the appointments for those next sales, as well as the next time they're in, we can review the items that were in red that weren't completed. Tablet use correlates to a stronger service consultant performance across the board. We know that, and that includes doing the vehicle walk around and status updates. Moving to the next slide, with respect to SLT and some of the other things that we know we can do, we have some recommended required categories as when we mention what does SLT actually mean. Our goal for SLT is an end-to-end tablet-based system. It includes appointment scheduling, lane check-in, multi-point, and then customer communications. In some cases, that offers you the opportunity to do e-payment and then also valet services through third parties. Our current certified SLT suppliers are Infomedia or CVIS, DealerFX, Xtime, CDK, and Reynolds. This doesn't mean that you can't use your own provider, but our goal is to obtain that information through the multi-point inspection. When we know we can measure something, we know we can help improve it. So moving to the next slide. These are the best of the best habits with respect to service consultants. As I mentioned before, these aren't all the same dealership, but these essentially are dealers that operate at a very high level based on customer feedback. So for the NPS score, the dealership with the highest NPS rating thus far, when they treat customers like family and the consultant backs up the claim, we know that the customers are much more satisfied, and at the end of the day, they want to be treated with that compassion and respect. If we do this in each and every customer, it's worth over 30 points in KSI on average and an increase of $12 per ticket. When we acknowledge every customer, in other words, when we greet them immediately, we know that customers hate to be ignored. So the consultants, if they're busy with other work or on the phone, they should at least take time to acknowledge customers waiting to be written up. This is worth over 29 points and another $22 per ticket. When the service transaction starts off on a positive manner with respect to greeting immediately, we know that we set it up for success. Same applies for common courtesies. Just saying thank you, my pleasure. There's a reason why there's companies out there like Chick-fil-A and Starbucks. These aren't just word tracks. They're actually beliefs by the people that work at these facilities. We know that specifically with COVID that providing an in-store write-up, maybe we give an elbow bump, a phantom high five, or just a statement that shows I'm smiling behind the mask. We know customers are just as uncomfortable wearing the masks as your advisors are, but we also know that customers appreciate when they see that sense of awareness and concern for their safety. This doesn't prevent us from doing a walk around. We know that a walk around, when started and done properly, is worth almost 60 points on your KSI and an additional $18 a ticket. You have to explain the benefits of doing maintenance and repair. It may be obvious to us that work in the dealership, but it may not be obvious to your customers. They may not understand the true value of doing routine maintenance or how an air and cabin filter replacement actually helps their vehicle perform. We know that we have some bad apples in the industry that that offer a negative connotation with respect to doing all types of maintenance that aren't necessarily recommended. But when there's service features and benefits and we train our people, we know that the closing ratios improve, and this is worth an additional 62 points. Moving through the survey process on the next slide, you have to keep your customers informed. Regular status updates. All of you out there, you see it on your own surveys. When we don't keep customers informed, we know that doesn't set up for a great recap or a great ending to the visit. Typically, it means that we're not actually going to be able to complete their vehicle on time, and then we don't get that recommended dealer score. When we keep customers informed, it's an additional 62 points in KSI and another $32 on your ticket. If your KSI is down, we have to ask why. But consultants have to ask questions of the customers. Is there anything we could have done differently? Just because a customer scored something, scored a survey a particular way, doesn't necessarily mean that there's not an opportunity to improve it. It's not set in stone. Sometimes education is just as important as offering a great experience. We know this is worth over 62 points, as well as an increase in $32 a ticket. It's one thing to have a customer that has an issue, but we have to address those issues immediately. When you get a service alert, the service alert's point is not to justify why we did something poorly. It's to actually reconcile the issue with the customer. And then obviously, apology is the cost of entry, right? That's not, apologizing to the customer is not resolving the issue. That's the start of the conversation. So when we know we resolve customers' complaints immediately, we're hitting almost additional 60 points at KSI. We want to remind customers of the survey. It's okay to talk about it. It's a comfortable conversation when you've earned that great score. How do you get a great KSI score? You give great service. And if you're doing that, you should feel confident to talk about with the customer, asking for that feedback, because that's the only way we're going to get better. And we have to stress the importance of just the scores in general with our team. Great scores, everyone needs to be on board. Remind your team how important the rating is, not just to the store, but to their jobs. We know happy customers spend more money, but we also know happy customers provide for a less stressful experience for your advisors and the rest of the team. So as we move on to the next slide.
Why don't we take a moment here, Jerry, real quick.
Agreed.
There was one question that came through, but you know, it's funny when we started really looking at the data, Jerry, and I think you'll agree, you start to really go, holy cow. I mean, obviously the revenue generation from the dealer principal's perspective is important, as is the profitability, right? And we know that these best practices really start to work. But I think as we started dissecting more of the information, we started seeing where the number of advisors per repair order was a big factor we had to watch too. And I even forget off the top of my head, what was the average repair order per technician, I think, that generated the most amount of revenue while maintaining higher customer satisfaction?
Well, when we look at you know, tickets per main shop technician, let's face it, more than 4 or 5 per day, it's unrealistic, because now they're just running it through. When we look at tickets per advisor, if you're more than 15 tickets per advisor, how exactly can we expect them to follow every step of the process for all 15 customers in a 10 to 12 hour period of time? It's not realistic, especially if we haven't brought everybody back. You know, Walter, we were talking that as successful and as profitable as many of our dealers were in the month of July, we also were concerned that many still hadn't brought back the support staff. So you have the peak summer heat, you have peak business, and you also have advisors that you want to be revenue generating stream parking cars, because we haven't brought everybody back. So we want the dealers that brought back people sooner are the dealers that realize the gains quicker.
Yeah, I think that's a big part. Hey, Kevin, I just saw you pop your video on. What are you guys averaging at the store per advisor? You're on mute, Kev. Unmute real quick. I just saw, there you go.
Right now we are averaging about 14 repair orders per advisor per day.
So you're right in that guideline. Do you see more sales as they spend more time with the customer?
Yeah, we see more sales. Last month was really good. We're down a little bit this month, but the RO count's also down a little bit this month too. Yeah. And I think it's just fell off because all of our stores are down on RO counts.
Yeah, we did. We saw that. We've seen that in our, it's kind of funny, you start to see part sales and service volumes move at the same rate, right? So right. I mean, that's a little concerning. We know we have for those dealers that enrolled, we have the buy 3 going for $1 promotion. And then I know as a central region, and I didn't mention this in there, but we're going to come back with another promotion just before the end of the year after the election, because we know we're going to get consumed with all the election paraphernalia, if you want, from every side of the house, right? So we are going to do our regional promotion after the election's done. So that way we know we'll get the impact that we traditionally get. And we've been averaging a 13% response rate on those, but you need traffic to make money, obviously, right? But you also need to spend enough time with the customer so you can get that additional sales. One of the questions in Jer was the closing ratio, right? Where are we seeing that regionally? Well, actually, I don't think we have a really good measurement.
Well, again, and it goes back to Walter, it's if we can measure it, we can improve it. We're not getting that data consistently from the SLT stream. We have dealers that are utilizing it. Where we fall off is the dealers are using the MPI as simply as an inspection sheet. They're not using it to record what was presented, what was sold, and what was deferred. When we get our dealers fully utilizing the multi-point inspection tool, we'll get a greater understanding of where the opportunities are. And that kind of goes to, I referenced before about having an active manager. An active manager should be looking at those reports on a daily basis. And if that happens, then we know that we're going to get better information.
Absolutely. I know that I just saw Tim jump on too. Hey, Tim, what are you seeing per advisor right now?
We're averaging right at 13.
Yeah.
We've dropped a little bit too because schools are starting to go back. That's what we've seen a lot of. We were busy the first 2.5 weeks, and then they started reopening schools up and people going back, and so our appointments have dropped probably about 20% just in yesterday and today.
Yep.
So they're concentrating more, though. That just gives them more concentration on the MPIs to walk around and more time to spend with the customers to maximize everything they can on each customer that comes through the door now.
And that was kind of funny when we started pulling the MPI data and looking at exactly how the revenue was being generated, is because they were spending more time with the customer. And if you look back, and we'll provide this for the slideshow so you can see the dissection of the numerous dealers we were able to benchmark from a service consultant perspective, the MPI and spending time with the entire MPI is what was really kind of generating that revenue. And John and both Adam commented back on the chat section that said the back to school is distracting. And obviously the four of you kind of agreed with that. We know that's the case. And hopefully we start to see that upswing and that uptick in the service. But now that everyone's starting to see the pandemic making more impact on customers, that their driving styles may change as well. So it's important that we and I don't want to say take advantage, but we capitalize on those customers when they come through the door and give them the proper experience that makes them want to come back.
Yeah, and a big difference here is because normally we actually, when school starts, we usually pick up more, which is usually a difference in other markets that I've been in, because we're a university, basically. I mean, we have KU here, and it's a lot, just like everywhere else, but it's a huge difference now in the universities, and not everybody's coming back to the university. So that's another thing that's affecting our business. We usually don't have a lot of drop-offs because the whole town folds up when the kids come back, and then when the kids leave, the whole town comes out. So we have that straight throughout the year. We don't really have any big dips.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, we're seeing that also, Walter, throughout the region. You can see the comments on the chat that even in addition to just an overall business flow, that the back to school mindset is actually just impacting people the way they think. And in terms of priorities, are they working remotely still from home? Are they going back to school? There's a lot of things that are impacting people's and customers' mindset currently.
Yep. And Jerry, just on a side note, before we move on to the next slides, both Kevin and Tim had service consultants in that top 10 chart too, just by happenstance. Let's continue. Please continue if you could on the chat, ask questions, and we'll continue down this. We're more than 3/4 of the way done, but we'll go through the do's and don'ts, and we'll cover some of the expectations that we see the customers are demanding. So, Jer, on to the next one.
Okay. All right. So the do's, we want to provide a safe experience, and not just for your customers, but for your employees. And a safe experience we talked about, it does tie into SLT. If you're still using a paper MPI, if you're still using actual paper for repair orders, think about how many times that piece of paper is touched between the point in time it's originated and the time that it's closed out. Is that the safest way? Is that the most appropriate way? We want safety for all. We want to make sure we're following the CDC guidelines and COVID protocols. We know that this is a difficult conversation. We know there's people out there that have their feelings on one side and feelings on the other side. What we would ask you to consider is, what do your customers ask for? What do your customers want? Majority of the customer comments we see on a negative scale throughout the region and also with consumer affairs are COVID related. So we'd ask you just to take a viewpoint of your customer as you're entering your dealership, as you're walking through, and make sure that you're continuing that type of embracing of safety guidelines as you did back in the middle of March when this whole darn thing started. We want to make sure that we create an easy online experience. We want to drive customers to your website so that your advisors and your other type of support staff are doing things that are generating money rather than just simply taking appointments. Creating no guesswork drop-off. What is your process and how do we convey that to the customer? What about pickup? How do we make it truly touchless? Can we go back to some of the things that we really started to embrace back in April and May with respect to delivery to home and office? We know when we deliver home and office, those average repair orders go up over $200 a ticket. That's not just an essential region, that is nationwide for Kia. We want to communicate with the customers at the highest level, but at their preferred method of contact. We don't want to offer any type of guesswork. We want to make things transparent and obvious to them. Create an environment that helps the customer understand your operations. Again, going back to the dealership website template, when your website looks professional and is easy to navigate, your customers are less likely to drop off. Also think about, majority of times when you go to look and shop for something, is it on your phone or your computer? If your website is not easy to operate and navigate on a phone, you have some opportunities there. We want to set the expectation with every customer. Service process needs to provide that transparency for the consumer. Pictures, video, text speak very, very clearly to the customer. Oftentimes, the customer drops their car off, they don't realize that their brakes are wearing thin, and it goes into the black hole, and then all of a sudden they need brakes, or this is loose. A picture or video allows the advisor to speak confidently about the needed repair. Payment options included online. If we can actually take online payment, you're expediting the pickup process. Regular updates throughout the visit. If they're waiting, do quarter time. If they're dropping off, every hour, every 2 hours. We can't afford to over communicate with our customers today, because especially if they're sitting at home or working remotely from home, they have a lot less things to take their mind off what's going on with the car. So it's critical that we keep them updated. Just like your customers, set your experience and your staff expectations. Are you doing daily huddles before their shift starts? Who's coming in? How many do we have? How many hours do we need to sell today? What is our KSI? Where are we standing? Where's our biggest opportunity based on survey returns? Employee satisfaction is key. Team member passion and emotional investment is lowest right now for service consultants. And there's no question why. We know COVID is a strain. We know customers are a little bit more anxious and antsy than they typically are. We have to be aware of it so we can address it. Open communication in the past, not just with the customers, but with your team members. If they see inefficiencies, allow them to interject. Training is key. Unfortunately, we often see many new team members, consultants, starting their first day not having taken one single web-based course. And I don't know, I think you've heard me say before, I had a daughter that worked at Wendy's. She spent 3 days taking video tests on how to make French fries. And yet we trust our advisors who are going to speak to more customers than anybody else in your dealership without any training. So there's a little box on the right that talks about the do's and don'ts, overall service repair order volume. We talked about it with respect to the digital tools. We want to make sure that when you're using those digital tools, the increase in impact it can have on the closing rate of your business and your dollar sales. So as we move to the next slide, some don'ts, just work the do's. Captain Obvious there, right? It's very simple. Focus on what you do well and continue to do so. Next slide. Customer expectations, we talked about it before. The service reservation is the foundation with which your customers base their service experience on. It's critical that they're based on shop capacity and estimated repair times. We can't count cars anymore. We're well beyond that. If we count cars, you'll either end up underselling your capacity or overselling capacity, and as a result, we're not meeting customers' expectations. We want to make sure that the appointments are at least shifted away from peak times if possible. Especially now with people working remotely, there is a window that exists that allows customers to be in mid-morning, late morning, early afternoon, whereas before they were driving to work. So take advantage of that. Find out when they want to come in, what day they want to come in, and make it convenient for them. And it's critical that we remind customers when they have their appointments with everything else going on, and have a follow-up process for missed appointments. When we look at overall service department efficiency, scheduling and resulting a great volume of business coming in results in a significant increase in sales. Next slide, Walter. So a little bit small type, and again, this will be on our YouTube channel, but we want to make sure that they take advantage of your website and take their own appointments. Self-service when possible. Drive them to your website and make sure your website's not only easy to navigate, but it's transparent. Utilize the BDC if it's possible. We want to try to take away any type of unselling opportunities to from your advisors. Ask the customer how they'd like to be contacted. The reservation process is a great point in time to collect their current email address. We know that that ties into more efficient and less expensive marketing, as well as a greater opportunity to hear from them when the service visit's been done. We want to make sure that we receive the customer's calls and thank them for calling in whenever there's a need or a question that needs to be addressed. Make sure that your repairs include labor operations and are streamlined. 3 C's. If your 3 C's aren't there for your customer pay, they're less likely to be there for your warranty documentation. It's critical that we get accurate information from the customers and that we're not just order taking. And we want to monitor the outcome of each day's reservations. How did we do against where we needed to be? What's coming in tomorrow? What's coming in 2 days from now? Can I get my BDC to start driving some additional traffic? Do I have a recall responsibility list? Do I have service actions in stock that I can complete right now? Next, Walter. So again, we want to, when we make the appointment, we want to confirm that they're coming in, and we also want to follow up on missed appointments. We have to reschedule. Also setting the next appointment through those yellow and red items on the multi-point inspection. If a customer is still planning on coming, determine when they expect to arrive. The best thing we can do is anticipate their arrival and take another opportunity to explain how the drop-off process works, because there's a good opportunity, a good possibility the customer hasn't been in 10 or 11 months, and 10 or 11 months ago seems like a lifetime ago, but more than likely your processes have changed since then. Next, Walter. So review the total shop capacity. We want to make sure that each day is allocated to efficiently fill your shop. Make sure you have accurate times and the inbound repairs are accounted for. We want to make sure customers are using the online reservation system. Are all customers aware of it? Some customers may not even realize that the easiest way to make an appointment is online. And we want to make the total number of no-shows and distribute those customer names for a follow-up to get that reservation back in. We can't take for granted that a missed appointment is going to come back. We don't know why they missed. We don't know why they didn't show, but we know that there's too many choices out there that if we don't call them back and engage them. So again, communicate, reservations process that's smooth, and then encourage customers to use your online service scheduling. Next.
Well, I think we're there, Jared, but you know,
yeah.
A lot of things, a lot of questions. There's a lot of really good chats going on the system. One thing that Tim points out is they obviously created an onboarding program. I'm going to throw on the screen and tell me if you can see it, but We do have this onboarding new hire training too on KDealer that you can use. If you don't have one established, you can use that as a guide to help you. So we know that that's out there as well. And then, as a matter of fact, early on, and let me just bring this one back up, Jeff Harris asked a question about the virtual training, or I should say technician training. We know how important it is. We do acknowledge that. We've had a lot of conversations with our training department. We're starting with our EV, electric vehicle, a virtual class on that. And we know that we're going to move towards more virtual. So that is coming down the pipeline soon. More will come on it, but it will be out there in wave, if you will. So we've been talking to them quite a bit. So we do have several web classes that are out there, new web classes on the EV. And as we expand our EV technology, you know, we didn't mention a lot about it, but we will be moving towards Illinois and Ohio starting in September to expand into the EV program.
And Walter, to add to that, they're going to look at those virtual EV courses to see how they can extract the successes from those courses into other virtual training, John. So we are looking to migrate as much as we can, as soon as we can, understanding the importance that web-based training is good, but we still need that hands-on training to continue to improve and increase your workforce as you get candidates that are ready for the next level. So we are working on it. Also, we can, at best we can say right now is stay tuned because that is our end game right now.
And we're working with KU, the director of KU, on certifications as well. So we don't want anybody to be fearful of things that are going on out there. We know where we're at with it. And all we can ask you to do is help your district managers by making sure that your staff are through the current and most current web courses and getting that certifications in the proper line to make sure that everyone understands what's going on. And Jerry, I got to tell you, I really appreciate the banter back and forth on Adam's question about watching the average number of ROs, customer pay ROs, and only parts and labor. And I like that everybody is really looking toward it. So it's interesting to see the dynamic and the shifts and changes and differences in different parts of the regions too.
Yeah, and again, we know hours per RO are important, but at the end of the day, hours is really the key word. How many hours do you have to sell each day and how many are you selling? So whether it takes 200 tickets to get there or 40 ROs to get there, the most important number is the hours game. It's not about hours per RO because you can be at 2.5 hours per RO and still not be where you want to be from a capacity standpoint or a profitability standpoint. We know right now, especially the way the game has changed with 60 to 70% of our business routine maintenances, those don't go to a big ticket. So, and again, because especially with Kia's extended warranty in terms of length, we know that a lot more heavy mechanical work is generally under warranty.
Yes.
So don't be just don't be turned off by low hours per RO if you're hitting your mark from a capacity standpoint, because we have to be competitive. We have to be competitively priced. It's one thing to have a great hours per RO, but if the customers aren't coming back, then you're spending all that money and profitability in more advertising to gain that customer's first visit. So
absolutely.
And that's really where we want to look at.
And Jerry, that goes to the point too, when you have MPI, every vehicle, every time, top to bottom, there's no question we shouldn't be doing that. That is all just revenue staring you at the face. And if you're not presenting every opportunity to the customer, you're not selling.
That's right. Yeah, again, when we ask to check your service lane technology and your MPI process, and if you're not on electronic MPI, please analyze what's your closing ratio. If you can't answer that question on an immediate basis, then you're not analyzing, because that's where your sales opportunity are. That's where you know, is it a presentation, a pricing, or a selling issue? So it's critical that we're able to understand where our strengths and weaknesses are so we can continue to get better.
Absolutely.
I know Mr. Rupert is chiming in. We are looking at the certification. Walter and I can tell you that our feeling in speaking with KU is that technicians and all certification levels will not be penalized because we can't offer the in-person training.
Yep.
In speaking with one of the leaders from KU, Web-based training right now is controlling the controllables. Keep all your staff 100% web-based trained, and we'll be in good position.
Absolutely. Adam actually asked a question too, Jer, to Janesville Kia. And he asked a question, obviously, Janesville, with your effective labor rate at 95.47, are you using tablet-based SLT program?
Yeah, and well, again, in that, depending upon who he's speaking to, I know Tim Wood has the service lane technology. So,
yes.
You know, and again, effective labor rate, different dealers measure it different ways. So we know that there's buzzwords that are important to dealership groups, you know, and it's important. But effective labor rate also goes to as a great measurement of being efficiently priced. If you have to discount everything, then you may want to look at your pricing structure.
As a matter of fact, I'm just looking real quick to make sure that I've got.
So does anybody else have any more questions? It looks like there's some great banter going on back and forth. You know, we want to be cognizant and aware of your time. We don't get the opportunity as often as we'd like to get these out there, but when we put them out there, we want to make sure that they're valuable, they're value added, and that there's something that you can take away from today's presentation.
Obviously, please, if you have any questions, feel free. We're here.
Yeah, and I will say that we've talked about it before, but in the Central region, there's a couple of indices that we know are very important to overall strong KSI numbers and performance. And that is keeping the customers informed, and customers whose vehicle was ready when promised or ahead of time are greater or more likely to provide you a definitely recommend score. For one reason or another, and it's Walter and I have been trying to get our arms around it with our team, is the Central region has the lowest recommend dealer score, yet we do not have the lowest overall KSI score. And what we're seeing is that ready when promised appears to be our Achilles heel. And oftentimes it's because the promise time wasn't offered in the first place. So, and that kind of goes to training. So please make sure that it's obvious to everybody in a dealership when a car's promise time was generated. If it's only on the repair order, the only one that knows that promise time is the one that has the repair order in their hand or you know, is holding it at that point. So whatever you can do in your dealership to minimize the lack of awareness of a customer's promise time, and then improve your team's ability to keep them updated so we can keep them up to date on their promise time, you're greater likely to get a stronger recommendation score. And
absolutely,
above everything else, if a customer can recommend you to their friends and family, that's the cash register question. If they can't, then you're spinning your wheels a little bit.
Absolutely, Jer. I guess without further ado, we're 50 minutes in, and we were trying to keep that as close to 45 as we possibly could, even with all the questions and answers. Thank you, Kevin. Thank you, Tim, for jumping in and providing some input on that. And to everybody who asked questions, Janesville, John Flanagan, Adam, thank you very much for helping and participating. And we're going to do more of these open dialogue situations and really talking about generating that revenue stream to keep your service departments profitable and the dealers obviously happy. So thank you very much. And Jer, we'll sign off.
Yeah, thank you again. We appreciate all you're doing, and please stay safe and keep you and your team and your employees safe so that we can get out of this thing and get back to what we do well. So thanks everybody for your time. Have a great day and a great close to the month.